Welcome to the first episode of the Peola Podcast, which brings you everything Georgian football. I am Mate, and I'm here with my co-hosts Luca and Sam.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about our thoughts on the preseason, what we believe is going to happen in the next season, and talk about the key transfers that have happened in the off-season. So first, let's talk about preseason football. Yesterday we attended the match between Lokomotiv Tbilisi and Sioni. And what are your thoughts on that match, boys?
I really enjoyed that game yesterday. I think one thing, we've been to 2 preseason friendlies live, and the weather has been just banging for both of them, man.
Yeah, we've been very lucky.
It's given me that like proper football feel. Great game yesterday, and pleasantly surprised at Lokomotiv's ability.
Yeah, exactly. Considering all the off-field issues they've had and the players they've had to let go, I was actually expecting... to be fair, I did predict that they would win, but it was more of a hopeful punt. You know, after the stories of what happened with the team, I was expecting they'd have a lot more difficulty, but they actually put in a solid performance. You know, they dominated from the starting whistle. It was a bit like the PSG Real Madrid the game before, like the PSG Real Madrid the night before, just the Georgian version of that, and of course less like high scale because there were no Neymars, but there was an Mbappe on the pitch of sorts, the number 10 from Lokomotiv Tbilisi.
Former Dinamo Tbilisi Academy player,
He scored an absolutely cracking goal. Like he hit the ball with his right foot, but he somehow scored a left-footed shot, if that makes sense. Like from the recording I have, it just like curved in, and I was
be sure to check out the vlog itself as well.
Yeah, we'll link that in the description. It's a banging game.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting Loko to be that comfortable on the ball, given the fact that they're like 17, 18, 19 year olds typically of the squad. With them dominating probably the first half. So they only were the better side in the second half. They could have scored at least once, I'd say, with the chances they had, especially in like the middle of the second half. Deserved win for Loko, as we mentioned it on the podcast, on the match day vlog. But I mean, I think they're going to prove many doubters wrong that those guys could actually play some decent football. Yeah. And in the end, I think they're going to be relegated in the end, but typically because of the experience and stuff. So
Well, so you think Loko are candidates for relegation in your eyes?
I'd say so.
Yeah,
I want to talk a little bit about the teams that are in Turkey. So obviously Sioni and Lokomotiv stayed in Georgia. I think so did Gagra and Tel Aviv.
Yep. Tel Aviv.
Not Tel Aviv.
Yeah,
but the teams that went out to Turkey, what did you make of the pre-season out there?
Well, I'd say it was rather disappointing, but the pre-season stuff is like, friendly matches, experiments, and all sorts of lineups coming out from the team. So you can't really tell that they play like the 100% they could. But I mean, some decent performances, especially with Dinamo Tbilisi winning 2 games in the end against Dinamo Moscow and against Spartakov from Uzbekistan. Shout out to Shotan Avaladze and all those Uzbeki guys. And Dinamo Batumi started off really well. Played 2 matches against Polish teams. Lech Poznan, who's currently the leading team in the extra class, beating them 2-1. A deserved win, I'd say. And a 3-3 draw with Rakov from extra class as well. So... there were some decent matches and there were some very bad matches, I'd say. So.
Excuse me. I think it's difficult to tell a lot of the time with these like pre-season friendlies because you don't know the lineups that are coming out, and half the time you've maybe got a combination of what would be first team players combined with like fringe players /
youngsters and stuff.
Youngsters and substitutes, and so I think everything with a pinch of salt there, but. I think overall it might be fair to say that it was a little bit underwhelming, especially in certain games. I think a lot of the time, and this might be a load of rubbish, but I'm pretty sure that there was lots of games where the Georgian teams went 1 goal up, or at least like heading in to the second half like with the advantage and just never capitalised on that. And it's something that, it worries you a little bit.
Against the opposition you're going to face in Europe during summer. That's the thing. Typically, like... there have been matches previous years when our teams beat better teams, but that's just one single match in pre-season, so you can't really judge the quality of a team or just basically the quality of the player. But in the end, like only 8 wins out of 29, so not the biggest of win percentages.
That's an absolutely horrible record. But then again, preseason is one of those things, as Sam touched on, that you have to take everything with a pinch of salt because it's difficult to tell how hard players are trying because, of course, you don't want to get injured for the new season. And then the players that are actually going to try harder are likely to be the youngsters or the fringe players who are given a chance. And you might not necessarily even see them feature in the new season. So everything should be taken with a pinch of salt. But with Lokomotiv, as I said, I was impressed at least. You know, they've got one of the youngest, if not the youngest squad.
They have the youngest squad, yeah.
Yeah, according to Transfermarkt, shout out for whoever's keeping the stats up to date. Yeah, they've got the youngest squad in this upcoming season with an average age of 22.1 years old.
And let's just point out that is boosted up highly by
Tevdoradze, the goalkeeper, is 34.
He's 34 years old. So I think the next oldest player after that is 26.
Yeah.
And then most of them are around 20, 22. So, but as a Derby County fan myself, I can vouch for it. If a team has a good academy setup, which Lokomotiv do, then you can be competitive in a division. So let's see. It's just whether the longevity is there throughout the season. It's worth going on record and saying that as much as I was impressed with Lokomotiv, I was bitterly disappointed with Sioni as well, because again, pre-season, maybe a few trialists, maybe switching out some players in the squad. But for a team that is coming up from the second division to the top division, what you look for really is a dogged determination, and more than likely it's not going to be based purely off the skill of individual players for them, but as a team about how they can go about and get goals. And again, it was the set pieces for me yesterday. Like, they're going to be so key for this team coming up, and they had maybe 5 or 6 corners, 5 or 6 free kicks, and they looked to threaten from maybe 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah.
So, you know, work to be done in that department. I'm not writing them off completely yet, but yeah, I was a bit disappointed, I won't lie.
Yeah, are there any players who stood out for you guys in the preseason and who you think are going to make an impression in this upcoming campaign?
I think all 3 of us agree on Marashvili from Lokomotiv, the number 10 with the curly hairs. That is quite tall, he's like 6'2", I think.
Yeah.
Rapid, got a decent shot on him. Probably one of the standouts. He could be one of the standouts for the team. Formerly of Debreceni from Hungary.
Yeah.
And probably that was the guy I was really impressed with, as well as the right back. I forgot his name, Japaridze, I think he was. We should be able to see more of him in the season, in the upcoming season. So yeah, that's probably the 2 guys I was.
Yeah, from that game, yeah, I think in terms of like watching some of the other games and the streams and stuff like that. I mean, obviously Irgitadze, with his move to Dinamo Tbilisi, looked incredible. Camera, incredible. In general, that team, that Dinamo Tbilisi team, looks like it will be a threat going forward this year, and like that could be the difference, I think, between who comes first and who comes second is scoring the goals. And so
speaking of who comes first, who comes second, what do you guys think? What are your predictions for the upcoming season? Can Batumi defend their title? Are we going to have a new champion? Fire away, guys.
The thing is, like, it's always hard to retain your trophy rather than to win it for the first time. And I think this year will be probably the most top-heavy year we had in the past 4 or 5 years, I'd say, with both the teams battling out until like the second or the penultimate match before the end of the season. And as a Dinamo Tbilisi supporter, I might be biased, but I think they have like that extra bit of sauce to win it, especially if the coach finally comes up with a proper lineup without experimenting. But
have they been able to replace the goals of Marusic, or is there someone else who can fill in his boots?
I'd say the team looks more balanced this season than it was last season, apart from them getting rid of like 10 or 12 players at the end of the season. The team looks more balanced. It would do with a centre-back or another defensive midfielder in my eyes, but during the acquisitions they made, Kamara and Kikitadze, as I mentioned before, 2 rapid wingers and the type of players you need in this league, quick players who can be a man off the dribble, can score, in every other scenario, like on the counter attack with the steady play. And Nika Mali, who I think the guy who really improved his play after the second part of the season, and probably the best right back in the league.
I vouch for that.
So, but you think, because the Dinamo Tbilisi squad is quite young, their average age, once again, shout out to Transfermarkt, but their average age is 22.6 years old. Do you think that they have the mental strength and the coach has the ability to get the best out of such a young side, or will we see some kind of
They have to. I think they have
problems.
To.
I think with a team like Dinamo Tbilisi, which has such a good academy, I think those young players that are come through with discipline, and they come through in a way which is like, I mean, especially like last year, you see with the likes of like Luka Gagnidze, who was like introduced like for the first like couple of games of the season just off the bench before like throwing them into a big role. But it's the experience of these younger players. Like a lot of them have already had game time in the league. If they're called upon for starting positions this year or so, it's fine. You've also got to think about the likes of Gabidava and like, there's a few heads in there. Your favourite player.
Papa, right? Yeah, I hate that, man.
who you know are experienced players at this level, and they have they're the sort of guys that you can lean on, you know, at 60, 70 minutes into a game if you need a goal or you need to push a team or push them forward. These are the guys that can come in and do it. It's by like no means like an inexperienced squad, even with those younger guys in there. So yeah, I mean, my personal thoughts are that Dinamo Tbilisi have strengthened. I don't think Batumi have been weakened, but I think Dinamo Tbilisi have been strengthened just that level higher. And it could just come that. I mean, this could just come down to 4 games this season. Like, that's the reality of it. Like, it could come down to the 4 games between the two teams to decide who becomes champion. And
so you guys are sure that it's going to be just a 2-horse race.
It has to be. Like, they're miles away from any other team in terms of quality, depth, like squad depth, and basically, like, it's how to put this. Like, all the other teams have some fair share of good players, but they miss out on so much in terms of like depth, play pool, missing out on like certain areas of the field. Like Torpedo, who signed a player, Georgi Arabidze, former Georgian national team player, for 200,000 euros, which I think is a bad deal, especially looking sign like 3 or 4 foreign players for that money on a free deal to pay them the salary with that amount of money. So in my eyes, like both Dinamos are going to be the clear-cut favourites to win the championship. But speaking of Batumi, like their team actually got better in terms of the bench, because last season in the matches they either drew or lost, the bench was non-existent. That's why they were lost, because like had like 3 or 4 players who now play in the second division. That really goes to show that with the quality of the bench and like the amount of reinforcements they could have put up on the field in like the 60th or 70th minute basically. And now Hassan, like Jano and Anize is a former Georgian international as well, a proper player on his day if he somehow manages to stay healthy, which I hope so, as a supporter of the man, as a supporter of the Georgian football and national teams in general. Batumi, if somehow they manage to bring in 1 or 2 more players in summer, and if Dinamo manages to bring a centre-back or defensive midfielder in the squad, those 2 will be just miles away from any other team.
Which brings the question of like sort of third place being like almost one of the most competitive places in the league.
So you guys are dead set. Your money's on Tbilisi, right? Dinamo Tbilisi.
Title number 19. Yeah, I'm quite biased, but yeah.
All right, I'm gonna take just before I move on to the third place, but I'm gonna take the brave step that Batumi are gonna retain their title. Yeah. Of course, as we've mentioned, they haven't lost any key players. We've got their average age is 27.1, so it's really the squad is entering like the prime years of their footballing career. They've of course got that like amazing new stadium with the great pitch and playing field, and you can't forget that. Batumi have been around and they haven't been that successful, but as someone who grew up in a very humid country, my God, Batumi is humid, man. And like come the summertime when the away teams are gonna come there, that little bit of humidity, like we saw the difficulties professional football players had at the AFCON, in Cameroon recently. That humidity might just edge a few games, but I think our man Jabaji Gauri is gonna be on top form again. Shout out to him and his
shout out to the fans of Dinamo Batumi, probably the best fans in the country. Like absolutely majestic what stuff they do. Every single match, like either away or at home. They basically went on a boat trip to Poti last season. As they're called as pirates, so that's the reason.
I am looking forward to the first like big crunch derby, if you want to call it, between the 2 Dynamos on March 4th. Really want to go. It's happening in Batumi, so if any of you guys from the club are seeing this, call me, get me a ticket. I want to go with the Ultras. And now, sorry to cut you off before, Sam, but what about third place?
Yeah, before we move on to third place, I have to mention that Batumi has got an edge on any other team, is that they're the group of guys who've been playing with each other for like 3 years, and that's a big thing, like, in terms of like chemistry or overall atmosphere in the club. And for them, it will be easy to start the season, and I expect Dinamo Tbilisi to be inconsistent in the first like 6 or 8 matches, basically, because they need to kind of figure out who they're playing with and what the coach expects of them. Whereas Batumi, the same coach since 2018, basically the same player since 2019, so they have like something
a unit.
They're a unit.
And like it's they won the league by 5 points last year, which it's 5 points. It's not like a canter, but it's still 5 points. And I think they'll be extra motivated by the fact that just to show the world, or well, Georgian football at least, that they're not a one-trick pony. They're not a one-season wonder, And as I believe it was Sir Alex said, it is harder to defend the title than to win one. And they're going to be desperate to show that they deserve to be up there with the big boys.
Yeah.
Moving on to the third place, my personal favourites, Dila Gori, who...
My team.
Yeah, like the way they play, attacking, pressing, being the dominant on the ball against any kind of opposition. For a team that lacks quality, lacks depth, it's just amazing for me. And the head coach, Andrei Dimchenko, the former Ajax player actually, probably is the best manager in the league, at least in my humble opinion. So, I don't know, what's your take on?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I think about like the transfer window for them, I mean, they lost a couple of players who you'd probably consider keys to them last year in Usman Kamara and...
Gugashvili, who went to Karabakh, and today's going to play a match against Marseille in the Conference League knockout stages.
It's not the same as an away trip to Sioni, though, is it? It's just not going to have the same vibe and atmosphere in Marseille, is it? But
dog shit stadium. No, just kidding. Don't kill me, guys.
Bidzinashvili as well. You know, you consider him going to Batumi, and but apart from that, you know, I know there hasn't been all the signs haven't been confirmed as of yet, but they've brought in a couple of wingers to bolster the attack. And I just think like they've held together a pretty decent squad as well. And when you look at the other competition around for that third place spot, I think maybe Sabatello may be up there as a
Torpedo
shout.
as well.
Torpedo, but I have like my reservations about Torpedo. I either think that they are going to come together as a team that we know that they can be with the players that they have, or they're going to self-implode. And I think that comes down probably a lot to mentality within the team and to leaders having to step up and take up places. They're a team that has quality, and I think it's just going to be a 50-50 with them. It could be a slow start and a fast finish, but I mean, my backing's on Dila to come third. Who have I got fourth? I actually have Sabatello to come fourth ahead of Torpedo. Just so I think Sabatello again as a team with a good set of like youth players, a good base set of youth players, but also the recruitment they made this summer was like, I thought was really clever.
Thanks to Loco, basically.
Yeah, basically thanks to Loco, they managed to bring in like 4 or 5 just experienced players who are able to play at this level comfortably and have like proven goal scorers, proven defenders, and Yeah,
and also my money's on Sabatello to be third because, you know, Chemi Rayoni, like, got to support the hood, but also, saw them in preseason, was impressed, but if the transfer market data is correct, they don't have any foreign players, so there's no issue with team chemistry or having someone to settle into a new culture, a new kind of style of football. And as you said, they're smart recruitment, so that's my money to improve on last year's 4th place finish. They'll get that 3rd spot.
Maybe we need to look at the bottom of the table now and have that awkward conversation about like who's going down, like who's finishing dead bottom. I would have listened before yesterday. I would have said comfortably that Lokomotiv will finish bottom of the table.
But
after yesterday, I can't say that. I can't say that at all because from what I saw, I think they've got a team with ability and players to stay up. And I then have to look at the other teams who I think have lost players. Now I think Tel Aviv have lost quite a few players this season as well. And then you've got obviously Sioni who have just come up and Gagra who have just come up as well. And it's like a roll of the dice for me in terms of like, I would need like a month or 2 months of the season to pass before I could like clinically say, but in my opinion, Lokomotiv are not going to finish bottom of the league if they continue to play how we saw yesterday.
If they somehow managed to get at least 2 or 3 signings, experienced signings in the team, because they should be able to sign on like a mid-level exception some guys who had some fair share of playtime for the past 2 or 3 years and can be like a veteran voice in the locker room for the youngsters. We really need some help with the older guys coming in. So
Speaking of potential new signings to come, just a reminder to our viewers that we're recording this on the 17th of February, and the new season doesn't kick off until the 25th.
25th,
right? Yeah, so we're 8 days before kickoff, and anything can change until then. Yeah.
So talking about the relegation battles, Samgurali is safe.
Yeah, I think, safe, like solid team. We've not actually spoke about Samgurali, but I think solid team
that actually has got some financial leverages to sign a few good players, as they're still in the process of acquiring talent. Team with their stadium, but they're going to play in Zestafoni right now because the grass is some grass maintenance going on.
I don't mind that.
Yeah, a good team, like mediocre, like mid-table team who last season, they've beaten Dinamo Tbilisi 2 times.
Yeah.
And draw against 2. So Dinamo wasn't even able to win a single game in 4 matches they faced each other. So decent side. They got better, in my eyes at least. They got better, kept their top striker, Seru Kuhanidze, the Georgian national team player who got called up against Romania and Netherlands, had his debut, played a couple of minutes. I think like the expectations aren't really that high, but they're probably safe.
Yeah, definitely.
And it could be like dark horse cup contender in my eyes.
Yeah.
Cool. So I mean, we can rule them out of the battle. In terms of like the two teams that have come up this year, like how do you fit? Like who out of those two teams, out of Sioni and Gagra, who do you see faring better in the league this year?
I think Sioni might be slightly better than Gagra, mainly because their team is better, basically. Yesterday, the match we saw, I was very disappointed with them, but they basically had like 6 players on trials, most of the youngsters. So the squad, it might be just a fluke, just a one-game fluke, but like the team that won the league last season beat Gagra, I think, 2 times during the season. Were like 7 or 8 points clear at the top by the end of the season. So
they have lost quite. They have lost quite a lot of players.
They have lost some players, but I have to call against Gagra because they've lost the top striker, Makataria. He went to Dila. Shout out to Dila. Lost the goalkeeper, Keresalida, who went to Dinamo Tbilisi. I'm not quite sure if he's going to start, to be honest. Like a big competition between him and Prieto.
Yeah, but surely it's got to be Prieto.
Yeah, it has to be,
man. Like, it just has to be in it because otherwise.
But, Keresalida was impressive. So, like, match against Partako in the second half, he came on like 2 vital saves and good display from him and other youngsters for Dinamo Tbilisi. And Gagra, they got worse this season than they were last season. So my prediction is, are those two teams, Gagra might have to finish slightly lower.
And if you look at my notebook, I have exactly the same thing written down here. I have Gagra finishing bottom.
Yeah, I got to agree with my 2 co-hosts. Gagra, you're going down.
Yeah.
Shout out to Gagra though, because I'd love you not to go down. Like, one thing that I love about football is a good underdog story and.
Gagra to win the Liga.
Not to win the league, but I would love it to be competitive around the bottom end of the table this year. Like, and I don't expect I think the bottom 4 teams will be fairly close together, and I hope they are because the more that carries on into the season and the less games are remaining, the more you see the fight from teams and people step up, and you get this feeling as the players, have this idea that we could actually stay up and we could actually survive, which may seem, like a long shot.
Even last season, Tel Aviv, who finished the first half of the season with like 11 points, they were dead last.
Jeez.
Like 6 points clear of the 9th best team, and somehow they managed to finish 6th. So in the end, it's quite possible if you somehow manage to get the, like the chemistry between the team and like self-belief in that we could actually make this. And Tel Aviv beat Dinamo Tbilisi, played a draw against Dinamo Batum, I think, and managed to keep the place in the league, deservedly keep the place in the league. I have to mention that one. It's never impossible to keep your place in the league with like at least 3 or 4 teams that will be battling you. And I think this season is going to be the one that probably, unfortunately for all the viewers and all the people who follow our league, probably the worst in terms of how bad the 3 or 4 teams under the 5th or 6th.
Yeah, but there'll be great vlogs on them, so you don't need to worry about that.
And where do you think it's going to be closer, the top of the table or the bottom of the table?
That is a really good question.
That's a good question.
I'm going to go ahead and say at the top of the league. I think between the top 2 is going to be the closest race there.
Yeah, it has to be.
It's going to be closer than last season?
Yeah, definitely. The thing with last season is that Batumi beat Dinamo Tbilisi 3 times and drew the 1 match. So
they're the points that won the league. They're the points that won the league ultimately.
Imagine if Dinamo Tbilisi won 2 matches, they would have won the league in the end.
They would have actually, yeah.
I mean, mathematically. So.
Mathematically, yeah, of course.
And I think one more thing that I wanted to ask you, lads. What are you most looking forward to about this season of football in Georgia? And not just like in terms of like the teams performing, but like personally, like what are you most looking forward to? Listen,
I'm most looking forward to the travels that we're going to be doing on this channel to the different kind of grounds and the different experiences we're going to have there, and also to experience Georgian fan culture. Like I saw highlights of the derby between Batumi and Tbilisi from last season at Batumi's new stadium in May of 2021, right?
It COVID restricted, by the way. way.
Yeah, it didn't look COVID restricted at all, man. Like, those flares and that atmosphere, man, it got my heart pounding, the adrenaline rolling. Like, I haven't been to that many football games in my life, but I was at the Parc des Princes for Lionel Messi's home debut for PSG, and just the atmosphere there in the ultra stand was cracking. So I'm hoping to experience something similar here in Georgia, where the people are passionate about lots of things in life, and I'd like to see that in football.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Yeah, the European qualifiers probably, which like a yearly competition for our teams. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get into the group stages since 2004 when Dinamo Tbilisi got into one, into the UEFA Cup, which was like a weird format with 5 teams playing each other just once.
Yeah.
But we played Newcastle from England, so that's a reference to you. But yeah, I think if Dinamo Batumi get somewhat lucky in the first qualifying round in the Champions League and they manage to win the matchup against the team they face, they're basically in the Conference League playoffs. With how the structure is,
it'd be huge, wouldn't it? It'd be massive.
No, and we somehow managed to get. Like, it's relatively easy with the Champions path, basically.
Yeah.
We saw like Flora from Estonia. Shout out to Estonians watching us. Get into the group stages. Lincoln Red Imps from Gibraltar make it to the group stages because it's relatively easy for a champion to get into the group stage because of the Champions path. And although Dinamo Batumi won't be a seeded side, unfortunately for them. They might be seeded in the next season if they somehow manage to win the league again. Yeah. They will still have a chance to make it at least to the playoffs, and we'll have to wait what happens then.
Yeah.
If Dinamo Batumi make it to any European competition, I'm setting up tent.
That's a dream.
Like Brosef, I'm gonna rent an Airbnb, convince the wifey to join me somehow. I don't know. I'm just gonna be a season ticket holder and just check out those atmospheres because. When you
have to point out that this is just exclusively league talk. We're going to talk about the national team later on.
Yeah. And anything else you guys want to add before we wrap this first episode of the Peola Football Podcast up?
I have to mention a few players I'm looking forward to. The youngsters or just basically experienced players.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, like Dinamo Tbilisi, the team of support. I think Usman Kamara and Kirkitadze will be two guys who should pull the weight, basically, and with their pace and their abilities to dominate the opposition, at least their opposition. Dinamo Tbilisi has like 2 really good players with them, and hopefully they're going to turn out real good in the UEFA Conference League qualifiers.
Yeah, I actually put down as a key player. I know this is like not a guy who I think will be key in terms of maybe having the most numbers on the board by the end of the season, but in terms of a player who's key for a team is Becca Dartsmellier at Locomotive. Like, if he's staying, which I think by all means we can pretty much safely say that he is staying. Like, he at 22, I think he's 22 now. He at 22 is pretty much a leader in that team, and with the loss of likes of like Imran Omar and various
big loss for the league itself, not only for the local.
Come back, Omar.
Went to Rotor. Come on, man.
But yeah, like for him, I think like he's got a really, really important part to play this season. So I think like in terms of a player who's maybe key for keeping a whole team afloat, like, that's my shout for him, and I hope he has a really good season.
Probably a player who has more quality on a struggling local side, basically.
Yeah.
So,
Wand of a left peg, Luca.
Yeah, I think it's like my key player in the sense is more one that's not going to feature, but it's rather how they replace him, and that's Marusic at Dinamo Tbilisi, because he was the league top scorer last year. And
player of the year last season, foreigner of the year as well.
Exactly, and then we're expecting a tight race at the top, and it often comes down to these fine lines. And he scored 17 goals last season. Yep. How Tbilisi replace him is going to be a deciding factor in this year's title race. So keep an eye on that.
Yep.
So I think with all that being said, that's a wrap for this first episode of Peola, the #1 Georgian football podcast out there. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and to share it with all your friends and family. We're going to be seeing you in the next episode very shortly. Remember to follow the vlogs and our different content on all platforms. See you in the next one.